Some of you might be aware that a few years ago, June in 2018, I sat and passed my Q calibration and Q qualification. So I am officially a Q grader. So what does that mean? It means that I went through 5 or 6 days worth of testing to qualify that my palate was good enough to be able to score coffee and discuss and describe value. Value inside of the coffee supply chain. It is an accreditation that is well received throughout the industry. It shows a degree of professionalism. And I was pretty proud that I managed to A, pass it, B, be able to get to it, because in order to get to it, you've either got to pay a lot of money, or in my case, I won a competition supported by and provided by my coffee importers, Falcon Speciality, and it took some time for the then instructor, the great Mike Riley, to encourage me to get on and actually book the thing. And there was a lot of stuff that went on that day, that week. I mean, the first day that I was there to sit my test, Katie, who was back in Hull looking after the roastery, couldn't get into the roastery. So I had her on the telephone because she couldn't open the lock, and all she was doing was using the wrong key in the wrong hole. And, you know, anyway, so I'm about to go into 6 days worth of testing, and there I am trying to steward my partner in which is her left and which is her right when it comes to putting a key in the door. But that's by the by. Anyhow, I passed that test. Great. A period of time has rolled through. 2018, we're 2025 now. And in that period, the CQI has not updated their protocol. Actually, they've not updated the protocol for 20 years now. And back in 2020 or 2021, the SCA, Specialty Coffee Association, decided to take them under their wing, so to speak. There was going to be a merge between the two bodies, and the SCA were going to absorb the Q qualification into the Specialty Coffee Association. So this year, we Q graders got an instruction that we had to convert our qualification from the CQI into the SCA, and we had until the end of December 2025 in order to do this. As usual, I pushed things to the wire, and alas, I did have a booking in August or September that I couldn't do. That was based in Edinburgh with John Thompson. Instead, I've been able to book on with my previous Q calibrator, Andy Prosser, who took the course that I went down to London to do. And this video is a description about what happened during those 2 days. So the drive down was nice. I stayed in a Travelodge. I got into a right kerfuffle about parking because, alas, the hotel did not have parking. That's super frustrating, especially when you've chosen to drive because I wanted to get back straight afterwards to get back to my kids, those sorts of things. So I didn't really know what to expect. We did, when we were provided a bunch of information, this 74-page document on what we should be able to do and expect to do, plus a view on what the new cupping forms are. This was the big change. Anyhow, so arrive at the site on Wednesday morning, ready to go through 2 days worth of training and some assessments to make sure that we still have the ability to A, taste, and B, use the new forms, because that's the big drive with this. It's using new forms to expand on what we as cuppers do and use to assess quality. Previously, the CQI form was a single line, and the argument was there was little area to apply information surrounding the coffee that adds value. So rather than just the inherent taste qualities, flavor, aroma, etc., but other factors that add value to the coffee inside of the supply chain. And this has become more important of recent times. There is a deeper discussion that happens between myself and my customers about whether the coffee's organic, where was it grown, what the cultivars and varietals were, what the processing method was, how and what aspects of farm control and management are happening. And these things add value to the coffee, certainly when it comes to marketing, and add story, which is important, but it doesn't necessarily reflect on the actual descriptive elements of the flavors on the cupping table. So this is what we are now beginning to do. We are going to be looking at a coffee in a more broad term. Of course, we assess flavor, aroma, fragrance, all of the things that are very important to coffee, but we are also looking at extrinsic parts of the coffee supply chain. So where was it and how was it processed? Are there any accreditation? So is it organic, UTCZ, 4C, etc.? There are other things that we will be looking at when it comes to the coffee that will potentially add value and tie back into the price of the coffee, and certainly how we communicate this over time. I have some views on this. I must admit that I went into the 2 days with a fairly extreme amount of bias. I'm a traditional guy. I don't really like change. I mean, I feel very weird today, sitting here in a navy blue jumper. I always wear black. Anyhow, these things set my brain a little awash. And this is what I thought when I arrived to do the assessment is, what's going to happen? Why do we need to do this? The system was good before, and I don't like change. But I will admit that actually, upon reflection on my 4-hour drive back, I do actually quite like it. It really does expand on the things that I need to think about and pulls in the business element for me of selling coffee to people. Because yes, of course, I've got to make sure that it tastes real good. That's a part of sourcing and roasting. But how do I then convert that into selling the product to my customers? Because that's the function of my business. And these cupping forms now will allow me to split them out so that I'm thinking about the attributes of coffee that may form part of that marketing structure, that tie back to the descriptive elements of the coffee. So what flavors, aromas, fragrances did I perceive in the cup without those extra attributes? And then to actually consider those extrinsic values. So thinking about more broadly the supply chain. Do I or have I worked with the farmer or importer? Did I particularly have an affinity with this particular origin? All these sorts of things. And when I receive a sample of coffee that I'm wishing to purchase and I go through this process, maybe this is going to be a really good thing, and I've just got to get over the fact that change happens, right? Anyhow, so back to the day, it was split out into the cupping form, understanding the cupping form. So we looked at the descriptive new cupping form. I'll try and put these on the screen as I'm talking. So a descriptive cupping form where we are now describing the intensity of fragrance, intensity of aroma, intensity of lots of other things. We are also putting down a description of the aspects of the coffee that we see in front of us there, not what we like or dislike, literally what we can taste. Is there sweetness? Is it high or low? Now measured on a 15-point scale. The intensity, high or low, that is, on this 15-point scale. And then any descriptors of that particular description, I've got to get my language right, description of the coffee. So we first spent a morning going through those descriptive elements. We cupped, we tasted, Andy put together different ways of looking at the coffee that was an interesting way of doing those things. Next, we moved on to the attributes. So this now is a scale of 1 to 9, whether we dislike the coffee an awful lot or we like the coffee an awful lot. And this, in my case, could be, does James really like the flavors or aromas or fragrances that I'm seeing at this particular part of the cupping form? It could also be, does James think that this coffee could form a beautiful expression of coffee for a particular customer profile? And that might be divergent to what my likes or dislikes are. So, for example, I may start working with a new cafe, and the new cafe decides that they want a bespoke coffee that is very heavy in caramel, low in acidity, and has beautiful chocolate structures on the finish. This is where that attribute scoring form will come into play. Now, I might not like that particular coffee. I might like high altitude floral coffees from Ethiopia, for example. Or if I was going to be choosing said coffee from Brazil, coffees that have greater clarity of flavor and more acidity. However, the instruction would be to find this particular coffee inside a bunch of samples or roast profiles, or however I've managed to put together the cupping. And at this point, those attributes, I now need to wear a hat that is looking for those attributes inside of the cup, irrespective of my likes and dislikes. And I quite like that. I like the fact that there is this scale of 1 to 9, extremely dislike, extremely like, and 5 being in the middle, somewhere that I'm neither here nor there. It is a nice way of me being able to skim through the form to understand at a glance whether I liked the coffee or I didn't like the coffee, rather than having to read through the scrawl of a cupping form that was beforehand. So that's good. I also quite like the fact that now we have the descriptive and the other attributes split out, subjective and objective split out. This way I can now focus on a certain facet of the coffee without having to worry about bringing the two together. And we did, on the last day, the second day, look at a combined form. And actually the SCA have described that the combined form is not something that they wish for you to use. And I sort of understand why, because now we're having to use descriptive terminology and then also apply whether we like and dislike this. And those two parts of your brain don't and shouldn't necessarily cross-pollinate, work together. And so I think in standard terms, in standard roastery operation, I will not be using this set of cupping forms. You know, when I'm assessing the 60 batches that I've roasted during the week, there's just too much to do. However, if I'm bringing a new product to market, if I am figuring out whether I want to buy a coffee or not buy a coffee, yes, this adds value, but certainly it will add a whole bunch of time. Things are now not going to be as quick. There is more to go through on the form, even such as the kata tick boxes. So tick the things that you want or that you can see. Just there are extra elements of the cupping form that do help in the descriptive side of things, but are additional entries, and additional entries mean additional time, additional thought processes. And if you're a busy person like I am, this could be somewhat problematic. However, the overall feeling is that bias aside, I think I'm actually going to like this. We're also bringing in other physical attributes to the coffee under assessment, things like moisture and density and screen size that weren't present before and that are important when it comes to roasting and curating coffees for people. It is very important and do affect the quality of the coffee and therefore the value of the coffee. Now, I've only been 1 day out from this course and I haven't yet put any of this into practice. So this is an initial thought based on the 2 days that I spent in a cupping lab at Curious Roux in West London. Nice roastery, by the way. Lots of things in there that, wow, I'd love to copy. A big 35 kilo lowering, lots of filtration, kit, lovely kit. Yeah, nice coffee as well and lovely people. So thank you Curious Roux and the Artisan Coffee School for hosting the event, and of course Andy Prosser for taking the lead on that event as well. And I made some acquaintance friends. There are people that I will be sending some coffee to over the next few days. Back to point. I've not yet used the cupping form in real terms inside of the roastery, and I will do that over this next month or two. and then come to a conclusion as to whether I really like this or whether I dislike it. At this point in time, I can see that it will add value. It expands on the things that we need to consider when it comes to coffee. You increase the fidelity, you increase the descriptors, the attribute, all of those things. So I get it, I really do get it. The issue is how it was communicated to us, the fact that everything costs just more money, £550 plus parking, plus travel, plus all of those sorts of things to convert. But I passed. Here's a certificate to show that now I am an evolved Q grader, whatever that means. And so that's good. I've done this thing, I've passed the thing, and now I've just got to put it all into practice. So if there are any cuppers out there, any Q graders out there, any roasters out there that have questions on the day, I mean, it's sort of too late now. If you are a Q grader and you haven't yet done it, I think you're fast running out of time. If you're a cupper and you just want to ask questions, please do. If you're a roaster and want to understand what the new Q system will be, let me know. I will try, if I can find, put a link to this document on the internet, at the bottom of this video, for you to read. 74 pages. So, you know, if you've got insomnia and you need to sleep, great way. Or if you're interested in just what we do as coffee tasters, it'd be a nice little read at some point when you've got a little bit of time. Anyway, I hope the presentation has been somewhat useful. Like I said, do comment, ask questions, and I will see you again soon.